The baby shower was held in my mother's sunroom, the one with the yellow curtain she'd sewn herself 30 years ago and never replaced. There were pink streamers. There were petit fours on a tiered stand. There were 17 women arranged on folding chairs in a loose horseshoe, and in the center of that horseshoe stood my sister Claudette, one hand resting on her belly, the other holding a glass of sparkling cider. She was laughing. A real laugh, head back, shoulders shaking. And what she'd just said, what had produced that laugh in the room and that particular silence in my daughter Renley, was this: "Well, at least my baby has a father." Renley was 8 years old. She was sitting beside me on the wicker love seat near the window. She didn't flinch. She looked at my sister for a long moment, then she looked at me, and she asked the one question I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You found Family Revenge Stories new. A channel about quiet people who waited, and what happened when they finally stopped waiting. If that's the kind of story you need today, subscribe now, and let's go back to the beginning. I am a contracts paralegal. I work for a firm that handles commercial real estate disputes, and I have worked there for 11 years, which means I have read more fine print than most people will encounter in 3 lifetimes. I am precise by profession and by temperament. When my husband Darnell left, which he did quickly and completely when Renley was 14 months old, I did not fall apart. I made a spreadsheet. I itemized the monthly costs of single parenthood, identified the gap between my salary and those costs, and filled the gap by taking a second position doing weekend document review for an insurance firm downtown. I worked that second job for 4 years. I drove a 2009 Civic with a heat shield that rattled when I exceeded 60 miles an hour. I packed Renley's lunches every night before bed, and I packed them with care. Not just nutrition but architecture, the kind of lunchbox a child opens and feels remembered by. My mother's mother, Nanabet, understood this. She lived alone in a house on Perkins Avenue that she'd owned since 1971, and every Sunday I brought Renley to see her, and every Sunday Nanabet cooked. Not symbolically, not performatively. She cooked the way people cook when cooking is their only remaining luxury, with focus and intention, and a cast iron pan that weighed 11 pounds and had never been washed with soap. Renley would sit on the kitchen step stool and narrate what she observed. Nanabet would explain without condescension. The rest of my family visited Nanabet at Christmas and sometimes Easter. They sent cards. Claudette called me on a Tuesday in March to invite me to the shower. She had not called me in 4 months. The last time we'd spoken, she'd referred to my custody arrangement as doing it the hard way, which I'd let pass because I was tired and because my mother was in the room. The shower invitation came with conditions attached, the way Claudette's invitations always did. Could I come early to help set up? Could I bring Renley but make sure she was on her best behavior, because Aunt Renata is coming and she doesn't really do kids? Could I not mention the thing about Darnell if certain people asked, because it made Claudette uncomfortable? I wrote down every condition on the back of an envelope and I looked at it for a while. Then I thought about Nanabet, who had been diagnosed with congestive heart failure the previous October and who had told me, when I asked if she was scared, that she was not scared but she was tired of people acting like she was already somewhere else. I thought about how much she had wanted to come to this shower. How she'd bought a gift 3 weeks ahead. A hand-embroidered blanket she'd found at a church sale in Whitfield, cream-colored with small yellow ducks along the border, and how she'd wrapped it herself with a ribbon she'd saved from her own birthday. She was too unwell to travel. She'd asked me to bring her gift and give it to Claudette with a hug. I told Claudette I would come. There was a warning I should have paid closer attention to. When I confirmed my attendance, Claudette said, "Good, it'll be nice for Renley to see what a real family celebration looks like." She said it lightly, the way she said everything she meant. I noted it the way you note a small change in weather, not alarm, just observation. Just data. The shower began at noon. I arrived at 11:15 to help set up, as requested. Renley arranged the petit fours on their tiers. She did it slowly and with great seriousness, making sure the colors alternated. My Aunt Renata watched her from the doorway for a moment before going to get coffee, and I saw something in Renata's face that wasn't hostility. It was just the particular discomfort of someone who doesn't know how to be present with a child, and knows they should. By 1 o'clock the room had filled. Gifts were opened. There were the usual performances, the gasps, the held-up onesies, the clipboard with the game about baby food in tiny jars. Claudette's fiancé Terence sat in the corner with his brother, the only men present, eating steadily and saying little. Then someone, I never identified who, asked Claudette how she was feeling about motherhood, about doing it with the whole village around her. And Claudette laughed and said she couldn't imagine doing it alone. She didn't know how anyone did. Someone else looked at me. Not unkindly. Just looked. And Claudette followed the look. Well, she said. At least my baby has a father. The room went still. 17 adults, many of whom had watched me raise Renley for 7 years, went still. One woman, my cousin Phyllis, opened her mouth. She almost said something. She closed it. Renley did not look at her lap. She looked at Claudette, then at me. Mama, she said. Can I ask you something later? I said yes. I picked up Nana Betty's gift from the pile, still wrapped, still ribbon-tied, and I walked to Claudette and I put it in her hands. I said, that's from Nana Bet. She embroidered the border herself. Then I took Renley's hand and I got her coat and I said goodbye to my mother, who did not stop us, and we left. It was a choice. I want to be precise about that. Leaving was not a wound. It was a door I walked through on my own feet, with my daughter's hand in mine, in full control of the direction we were heading. In the parking lot, Renley asked her question. Mama, she said, if you didn't need a dad to make our family, why does Aunt Claudette think it would make hers better? I didn't answer right away. I buckled her in. I got in the driver's seat. Then I said, that's the right question. I don't have a good answer yet. She nodded, satisfied. She looked out the window all the way home. We did not hear from Claudette for 6 weeks. My mother called twice, once to say that Claudette hadn't meant anything by it, once to say that I was making things harder by not calling Claudette first. I listened both times without interrupting. I said I understood her position. I did not call Claudette. What I did instead was work. I took on an additional client project in April. A commercial lease dispute that required reconstructing 11 years of amended contracts from partial records. I billed 61 hours that month over my base. The extra $2,340 went directly into Renley's education account, which I'd opened when she was 3 weeks old and which now held, as of her 8th birthday, $14,870. Nobody knew about that account except me and the bank. On Sundays we still went to Perkins Avenue. Nana Bet was slower now. Some Sundays she stayed in her chair while Renley cooked and narrated, and Nana Bet directed from 8 feet away with the authority of someone who has never needed to be standing to be in charge. On one of those Sundays Nana Bet taught Renley to make her tea cake recipe, the one she'd brought from her mother's kitchen in 1958, which called for 2 tablespoons of lard and a pinch of nutmeg, and which Nana Bet measured by hand without thinking. Renley wrote it down in a spiral notebook. She wrote down every step in her careful, oversized second-grade letters, and when she finished, Nana Bet said, "Good. Now it doesn't die with me." I was standing at the kitchen window looking at the backyard when she said it. The lemon tree in the corner of the yard, the one Nana Betty's husband Clarence had planted when they moved in, that still bore fruit every August despite being technically too far north for lemon trees, was just beginning to bud. I stood there for a moment and felt something in my chest that wasn't grief yet. Not yet. There was a folder. I should mention the folder. It lived in the 3rd drawer of Nana Betty's secretary desk, the small wooden one in her bedroom that had belonged to her mother, and she'd pointed me toward it in February with the instruction that I would know when to open it. She didn't explain. I didn't ask. I moved the folder once to the top of the desk in April, after a Sunday when I noticed she'd had trouble finding the right words mid-sentence. I didn't open it. I put it back exactly where I'd found it. Claudette called in May. Terence had taken a new job. They were relocating to Charlotte. She was sorry about the shower, though her version of sorry involved several sentences about how she'd been stressed and hormonal, and how I was sensitive about the Darnell stuff. I let her finish. I said I hoped the move went well. I said I hoped the baby was healthy. Both of those things were true. I did not say anything else that was available to me, and the things I didn't say are not in this story because I chose not to put them there. If you're still with me, if you feel what's coming, the weight of what's in that folder that I haven't opened yet. Subscribe to this channel right now so the rest of the story finds you. Because what came next changed everything I thought I knew about what Nanabet had built in silence alone for 60 years. Nanabet died on a Thursday in June. It was 6:42 in the morning. Renley was asleep. I was the one they called. The funeral was on a Monday. The family gathered, all of them, including Claudette and Terrence who drove up from Charlotte, including the cousins and the aunts and the church friends and the neighbors from Perkins Avenue who'd watched that lemon tree grow for 30 years. My mother organized the repast. There were deviled eggs and honey-glazed ham and sweet potato pie and Nana Betty's tea cakes, which I'd made from Renly's spiral notebook the night before, measuring the lard by hand the way Nanabet had shown us, pressing each one with my thumb before baking. Renly stood next to me the whole time. She ate 2 of them with a seriousness that looked like ceremony. 3 weeks after the funeral, a lawyer named Aldous Pruitt called me. He handled estates. He asked if I could come to his office on the following Thursday and whether I could notify the immediate family, as Nanabet had requested all surviving adult grandchildren be present for the reading. I called my mother. I called Claudette. I called our cousin Marcus, who was Nana Betty's only other grandchild. We gathered in Aldous Pruitt's office at 2 o'clock on a Thursday in July. It was 94 degrees outside. The office had a window unit that worked imperfectly. My mother sat with her hands folded. Claudette sat with Terrence, who had come although he was not named in the will. Marcus sat apart near the door. I put the folder on the table, the one from Nana Betty's secretary desk. I had finally opened it. Aldous Pruitt began to read. Nanabet had owned the house on Perkins Avenue outright since 1989. She had paid off the mortgage in 14 years. She had also, beginning in 1991, purchased 3 additional properties in the surrounding neighborhood, 2 rental units on Carver Street and a vacant lot on Meade Avenue, using the rental income from each to fund the next acquisition. By the time she died, those properties had a combined assessed value of $618,000. The folder contained the deeds, all 4 of them, and every lease agreement going back 12 years, and a handwritten letter. The room at the reading of that number went absolutely quiet. Then Claudette said, "That's not right." Just those 3 words, flat and certain, as if the number were a clerical error. My mother put her hand over her mouth. Not performance. Her hands went to her face the way hands do when the architecture of what you thought you knew begins to shift. Marcus looked at the floor. The letter was addressed to me. Aldous Pruitt slid it across the desk. I read it privately first, then I read the relevant portion aloud because the room deserved to hear it. "I watched you pack that child's lunch every night. I watched you drive that rattling car and never say a word about it. You never asked me for anything. That is why everything goes to you. Not because the others are bad. Because you already knew how to carry weight without making it everyone else's problem. The properties are yours. Do with them what I would have done, slowly, carefully, and without announcing it. Renly already knows how. You both learned it in my kitchen." I set the letter down. I opened the folder to the deed for the house on Perkins Avenue, and I slid it slowly to the center of the table. "Nanabet bought that house," I said, "in 1971, with her own money from her own job, while raising 2 children and caring for her mother. She did it alone. And she never mentioned it once in any room I can remember because that's what you do when you build something real. You don't announce it." I looked at Claudette. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I looked away. I was thinking about a baby shower. About pink streamers. About the precise weight of a comment delivered in a sunroom to an 8-year-old girl. And about the way that same 8-year-old had asked, in a parking lot, the question that cut to the exact center of the thing. I didn't say any of that. I didn't need to. Claudette contested the will. This is the part people expect to be dramatic, and it wasn't. Aldous Pruitt was thorough and Nanabet had been precise, and the contest was dismissed after 6 weeks. The estate was settled in full by November. Before the dismissal, I made one offer. I called my mother and told her that if Claudette needed time to accept what had happened, I could delay my assumption of the Carver Street properties by 90 days as a gesture of goodwill. I meant it. My mother relayed the offer. Claudette declined it and called it charity. The word she used was charity. I noted that, the way I note everything, and I moved forward. The house on Perkins Avenue I kept. The Carver Street units I now manage directly, with Renly's college fund receiving 40% of net rental income each quarter. I had the deeds framed, all 4 of them, and I hung them in my home office where I can see them while I work. Renly is 9 now. On Sundays we still go to Perkins Avenue, though it is our house now. The lemon tree bore fruit this August, 11 lemons which I counted. We made lemonade and we made tea cakes from the spiral notebook and we ate them at the kitchen table that has been in that kitchen since before either of us was born. Renly asked me once, a few months after the estate settled, if I was happy about what Nana Bet left us. I told her the truth. That the money mattered less than what it proved. That Nana Bet had spent 60 years building something in silence and then she'd written a letter that explained exactly why. And the reason was not that we were special but that we had paid attention. That we had shown up. Every Sunday with our hands ready, and our mouths asking the right questions. Renly thought about this. Then she said, so the inheritance wasn't really the houses. I told her she already knew how to carry weight without making it everyone else's problem. I think Nana Bet was right about that. If you made it to the end of this story, you already understand the thing it's really about, which is that the people building in silence are always building something. Check on them. Not because they need rescue but because they deserve to be witnessed. Call the person in your life who never asks for anything. Call them today. If this story reached you, share it with someone who needs it, leave a comment and subscribe, because there are more of these stories, and they all belong to the same quiet people. I'll see you in the next one.